According to the government guidelines, banks are ready to freeze mortgages. During these circumstances, the question is whether the banks will still be comfortable giving new loans. This is because those customers will come back after a couple of days requesting to freeze their new home loans as well.
So the reality of this question is that banks aren't shouting the answer to this from the rooftops, because they don't want to encourage all their new borrowers, come to us and we'll give you hardship. The reason they don't want to encourage that is actually not for their bottom line. We talked about this earlier. The banks make more money off you if you take a payment deferral. The problem is ASIC and APRA. If you're seen to be giving money to someone that's going to ask for hardship 2 days later, that's a problem. So the banks are taking great steps at the moment to make sure when you apply for your loan, there's no foreseeable hardship there. And if you're in an endangered industry, they will be calling employers. Right? They will be making extra checks to make sure that you're not in hardship now. If you do not require assistance, you take out your loan and then you go to the bank to ask for that deferral, yes, they'll still give that to you. Why? Because they're making money from it. Over time, you're paying them more. Do you want to be taking that deferral? Possibly not, and that's the question we talked about earlier. But they will still give it to you because commercially, it's a profitable decision for them.
And James, I literally had a discussion with three of the major bankers this week. And this is in terms of my personal circumstances. I asked this question, right? I asked this question that are you guys open to the new lending as such? And the overwhelming answer that I've received from all of those three bankers is that of course we are. Yeah. That's how we make the money. That's how the business goes, right? I mean, we cannot just not lend you, right? And that's what we do, right? But yes, there is a practicality of it, and the practicality of it is that the walls seem to have stopped. There is a practicality of it is that we're trying to do the housekeeping at the moment. We're trying to sort of overwhelmingly sort of assisting every single person who needs that bit of the support. So that may be priority one. But nonetheless, we are absolutely wholeheartedly open for new lending at the moment. If anything, one probably argues that if you look through the cash reserve, the way that the government bonds are sort of coming through in the market with the RBI and how the liquidity is being injected in the market, one probably argues that if you look through the cash reserve side of it, most bank, if not pretty much all of the bank, one may argue some of the second tier banks, some level of risk, but at least the larger banks as such, they're probably as cash reserved as they have been for a very long period of time. Those cash need to go somewhere.
That's a very interesting point, that one. So something that happened kind of on the quiet at the start of this year is with world economies starting to improve, as they were before we got hit by this, there was actually an opportunity for a lot of the banks to pick up money quite cheaply. So APRA requires a level of liquidity in lending, and we're getting a little bit complicated here, so I won't dive into it too much, but they require a level of liquidity that is comparatively very high in the world. It's one of the things that makes Australian banks exceptionally strong. But most of our lenders went significantly beyond that liquidity level to purchase all this cash because they could do so cheaply. Now, I tend to attribute that more to luck than foresight of the pandemic that was coming, although there's rumors that people around the world did actually know about this before it came, but that's a different story entirely. But the end result is our banks are flushed. They have heaps of cash right now, which is why they're so willing to come out and give these payment deferrals. Profitably, they make more money from it. Cash flow wise, they're fine, they don't really care. They have heaps of money sitting there for this to go on indefinitely, and they'll still be in a comfortable position. So, generally speaking in lending, and this is any level of lending, the biggest determining factor of whether you will be approved for a loan is not the bank's risk appetite. All you have to do to check that is look at business lending. Business lending is done off 3 months of bank statements. Right? The banks are quite willing to take risks on you. That's how they make money. What determines whether you'll get a loan is whether they can meet their requirements under the NCCP Act and meet their responsible lending requirements. They're more scared of ASIC than they are of you. Especially so now. If you take out a new loan and apply for hardship straight away, the bank doesn't care. ASIC might care. ASIC might come looking at whether they should have given you that loan in the first place. So the banks are very much open for business, but they're going to be looking at your employment status more closely than they normally would. Whether your job is stable, whether it's ongoing, etc. But if you pass all those tests, once you're in, you're in. The rules are now back to normal. You can go and do whatever you want. You can apply for that hardship if you need it.
And it's about going against the tide very often. And going against the tide in the sense that I'm the bank. So I'm sort of thinking from bank's point of view. And if I have lots of people sort of in difficulties and I've got all this cash to sort of flow to the economy as such, I would be actively looking into good quality application as such.
That's right.
So my objective would be now as an investor is that how do I present myself in actively saying, hang on, I understand that all the sort of the fear and tear in the open world, but I'm okay. My job is okay because I work in this particular industry that I'm just being fortunate in there. And I think I, as an investor, my bargaining power, in the implied bargaining power, if I may, is a lot higher under the current circumstances.